Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today we've got some Star Wars news coming here from our boys over at Bounding in the Comics. Another rumor. However, this rumor comes from a source from a dear friend to the channel, Mr. Gary Beekler of over at Nerdrotic.com. So very, very cool to see Bounding in the Comics use both a source and use both a rumor from Doomcock this week and also from Nerdrotic, which is an awesome channel. Highly recommend it. I listen to his stuff all the time and he's freaking fantastic. But what is this rumor, apparently? That J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson's Star Wars movies were supposed to reboot the franchises. Well, we can absolutely tell that that was a major success, right? Everything's been rebooted. Everyone is in love with Star Wars again. We've got Star Wars for a new generation because, as we all know, based on recent Twitter, Twitter thoughts from certain people, it was people forget The Last Jedi. It was a critically successful, it was a financially successful film that everyone loves, and everyone's in love with Star Wars. And isn't everyone just excited for Episode 9? Oh, that's right. That's crickets I'm hearing because a lot of people aren't excited for Episode 9 at this point, especially hardcore Star Wars fans. But the new rumor suggests that J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson's Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi movies were supposed to reboot the entire Star Wars franchise. So this rumor comes from Gary Beekler, and the source tells Beekler this: Rian was not just randomly writing a story, nor was J.J. J.J.'s job was to create a in-canon reboot like the 2009 movie and introduce the new characters. Rian's job was to kill off the originals, and then you were supposed to not notice it was rebooted. Each was given the outline to make it and what the points were. So now you know why. Disney did not want to pay a license fee, and by the end of it all, it looked different and has new copyright under the old name. They even changed the Falcon to be different, but the orders were in the end to leave nothing original. Now this also goes in line with a recent source from Doomcock about how they have kept away original characters from the new parks and from a lot of the movies and been trying to kill them off because they don't want to have to pay royalties to I don't know why I'm blanking out right now. It's been a long day at school. But George Lucas, why they don't want to pay George Lucas for a variety of different reasons. And I think that this is actually interesting. And to me, out of all of these things, you know, I always try and point out one thing that to me makes the most sense. To me, it's the Falcon. To me, why is it that something so small, like changing the dish on the Falcon, would happen? Why would you make that type of a difference? Well, if it's of enough of a difference to be able to change the copyright, well, then at that point in time, no longer is that something that George Lucas owns. No longer is that something that anyone else has the rights to. Now it is purely a Disney product, and it makes a lot of sense that you have J.J. Abrams being set up. Hey, here's the new characters. Here's some backstories. And I would say that for a lot of those characters, I had some genuine interest in them. Though, of course, Rian Johnson being brought in with his job being to destroy the old characters, to do away with them, and to make way for the new characters, which I honestly think probably midway through shooting, they said, maybe this isn't the direction that we should be going, and maybe this isn't going to work out so well because people aren't really going crazy over these new characters all that much. And of course, we got The Last Jedi, which was just a complete jumbled mess. The source added this: there is this just quick. There was always one plan. After the reaction to The Last Jedi, the decision was made to bring in JJ to fix the plan he laid out, and they threw Rian under the bus. That is why they said Rian might get his own trilogy. They just didn't expect the backlash to be as toxic as it was, and consequently Solo flopped. And I think that's an excellent point. I think that they did not really expect people to be that angry with The Last Jedi to the point where the fandom has pretty much been split over it. What the actual data is based on people who actually saw it, I don't know. But notice that fandom is not the same thing as people who saw it. There are a lot of people that went to go see Marvel movies. There's a lot of people that go to see Star Wars films that aren't necessarily Star Wars fans, that aren't necessarily considering themselves as a part of a particular fandom. And I think that it's a lot more accurate to say that Star Wars fandom is split very much so over The Last Jedi than to say that overall fans are, or rather, correction, overall audiences are. Because we can easily go to general normal audiences who will say, oh no, it's fine. But these are people that aren't invested. These are people that couldn't care less about canon. These are people that couldn't care less about whether or not the story makes any sense. These are the same people that will go out and say, oh no, the new Lion King was great, even though from an objective standard, for anyone that knows anything about the story, for anyone that has the ability to dive into stories and be able to pick out, things that don't work, work at, as far as the CGI, or to look at the soullessness of the characters, maybe just can be able to enjoy things from a visceral level, from a big box office level, it is going to be much clearer that there's going to be a stronger divide there. So there's a stronger divide among those who are passionate than those who are just normies, as we like to call them. Again, as Gary himself has called consistently. The normies have taken over. The normies have taken over Star Wars, which is the reason why Star Wars was as big as it was back in The Force Awakens. But now the normies themselves aren't enough to keep up with everything new, because you were able to bring the normies in to say, oh, look at this Star Wars thing, let me check it out. But because you are losing the major fans, because you were losing the hardcore fans, that disrupted everything, which is what eventually led to Solo, a Star Wars story, losing as much money as it did. Because people try and act like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. But people seem to forget that $200 million loss for a movie is awful. Even if it made it up after the release, even if it made it up because of a deal with Netflix, even if it made it up because of certain deals overseas, doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you were starting already $200 million in the red by the time it came out on DVD and Blu-ray. So I think that is something that we cannot ignore. And again, it makes sense as to why they would want to bring in JJ and not bring back Rian to fix the mess, seeing that he did a decent job copying A New Hope in the first film, and maybe they expect him to do something again here. Rian Johnson previously indicated there was no set plan for Disney's Star Wars sequel trilogy. Johnson spoke to Deadline that's what's been really cool about the storytelling process. There is definitely the idea that we know it is a 3-movie arc. We know the first film is an introduction, then the middle act is training, meaning challenging the characters, really. If it's all about training, well then it looks like Rey still needs to get that training, and you didn't do your job very well. The third is where they all come together and you have to resolve everything. But I was truly able to write this script without basis to tag and without a big outline on the wall. That meant I could react to what I felt from The Force Awakens and what I wanted to see. I could make this movie personal. Exactly. You could ignore everything, all the softballs that J.J. Abrams set up for you, and then just say, bloop, screw you. I am going to make my own film, my own personal film, because Kathleen Kennedy has no idea what the hell she's doing and said, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want. And now you've got a trilogy that's so disjointed, so discombobulated that no one in their right mind could say it's a coherent overall story. Even if JJ is able to bring back some of the original plans, even if JJ is able to somewhat redeem certain characters, it's never going to be seen in the eyes of most people, especially fans, as a coherent trilogy, let alone a coherent end to a 9-movie arc that could be and should be one of the greatest 9-movie arcs of all time, but most especially because of recent actions by Disney, is one of the biggest mistakes of all time as well. We have more quotes here. In an interview with Fast Company in April, J.J. Abrams also added into a lack of structure. But without getting into the weeds on episode 8, that was a story that Rian wrote and was telling based on 7 before we met. So he was taking the thing in another direction. So we also had to respond to episode 8. So our movie was not just following what we had started, it was following what we had started and then had been advanced by someone else who did not check in to see and make sure that everything was going to fall in line with where the story was going to progress, because Kathleen Kennedy gave Rian Johnson way too much freedom. And this is the reason why I say this constantly. Kathleen Kennedy, she might be doing fine as a producer as far as getting the money for the movies and getting the movies actually produced, but as a creative head, she is an imbecile. She has no idea what she's doing. She has no idea how to run a company. Or rather, how to run a franchise, because of the very fact that she's brought in 2 different people with 2 different ideas. And now JJ has been brought in to clean up the mess. And even he admits that Rian Johnson's direction ruined the overall arc to the point where they now have to fix it. They now have to fix the mistakes of Rian Johnson. This is how just crazy and how messed up Star Wars is right now. You've got J.J. Abrams coming in, who many people are not fans of, by the way, who now has to fix the problems of Rian Johnson that many more people dislike than J.J. Abrams, and you have this giant mess. While there are some threads of larger ideas and some big picture things that have been conceived decades ago, and lots of ideas that Lawrence Kasdan and I had when we were doing episode 7. The lack of absolute inevitability and the lack of complete structure for this thing, given the way it was being run, was an enormous challenge. So that is a very polite way of saying, because there was no structure to what Rian Johnson decided to do with his movie, because Rian Johnson did not make a movie to be the second film in a trilogy, but instead made his movie to be something of his own making, that he said, it's a Rian Johnson movie, and I'm Rian Johnson, and it's a Rian Johnson movie, and it can stand on its own, and then just give a giant middle finger to the first film that came before it and any film that could come after it. So what are y'all's guys' thoughts about this? Again, there are more quotes here from this article, and which I highly recommend, but I really do think that this source close to Gary over at Nerdrotic is onto something. It sounds to me, and it seems to me, that they were trying to reboot the franchise, but Rian Johnson is the one that mucked it up. Rian Johnson was the one that was supposed to take what JJ had set up and follow a plan, but Kathleen Kennedy gave him way too much creative freedom, like too many of the creative choices that he he made. And in the process, even though they had a film that they individually liked, when you put it into the context of episode 7, and especially in a future episode 9, it didn't make any damn sense. I would love to hear all of y'all's thoughts about this. Do you think that there's any truth to this rumor? Do you think that Rian Johnson is the one that mucked it up? Or do you, like me, think that the ultimate responsibility and the one that is solely responsible, or at the very least, mostly responsible for Star Wars being in the state that it is currently, is no one else other than Kathleen Kennedy, who needs to lose her job? I mean, this state of the trilogy alone shows us clearly that she has no creative drive. She has no creative direction. She has no idea what she's doing. This is a trilogy that does not make sense within its own borders, within its own context. And it's going to lead to so many people acting as if this trilogy never existed, maybe pointing out certain parts of certain films, but this to me is the most discombobulated, most disjointed trilogy in modern movie history. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comments below. Also, guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. You know that YouTube is just gonna treat this video like absolute trash. If you want to support me over on BitChute, you can support me over there, bitchute.com/channel/Odin's movie blog, where also every video I upload here goes up. You can also check me out on hideout.tv, where if you don't mind watching some ads, it does, of course, help the channel, because YouTube sometimes monetizes, sometimes demonetizes, but every video up on hideout.tv is monetized. So you do have to watch ads, but hey, it's one way of subsidizing for the channel. Or you can go through my affiliate links below displayed, I talk about all the time, and the Amazon affiliate link if you ever want to purchase something. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.